I never thought I'd come home early from a deployment and find my life crumbling in front of me. The house was unnervingly quiet when I pulled into the driveway. Usually there be the faint hum of the dishwasher, my wife's laughter from the living room, or the kids running around. Instead, everything felt still, like the house was holding its breath. My heart started pounding, a sick feeling rising in my stomach. I knew somehow that I was about to step into something I wouldn't recognize. I swung the door open and immediately sensed something was off. The scent of her perfume was stronger than usual, but there was something else, something wrong. The living room was too neat, too quiet. No sign of the kids, no sign of her. Just the cold silence and that faint, strange smell lingering like a ghost. I called out, "Lena Mia, everything okay?" My voice sounded rough, almost foreign in that hushed house. No answer. I moved through the house, each step feeling heavier. Then I saw her phone tossed carelessly on the coffee table. The screen was unlocked. Something flickered in my mind, an instinct I'd learned over the years. I picked it up. The messages stared back at me, texts from her to someone named James, full of emojis, flirtatious buzzwords, and stolen moments. My stomach clenched. The words were innocent enough at first, but then I saw the "can't wait to see you tonight," and "what the kids don't know won't hurt them" lines. The proof was right there, laid bare. I felt the world tilt. My fingers curled into fists, trembling. That's when I saw the photos. They were hidden in her photo gallery, a series of pictures she never intended me to find. Him, her and him, smiling close, her hand resting on his thigh, lips pressed together like they owned the moment. I stared at the images, hot rage boiling up inside. I could almost feel her skin, the betrayal sinking into my bones. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she lied, kept it secret while I was away, risking everything? I felt dizzy. My palms went slick and I had to lean against the wall just to stay upright. My mind was racing, heavy with betrayal. I didn't want to scream or cry. I just wanted to understand how she could do this to me, to us. How long had she been lying? Did she think I'd never come home early? The thought of her inviting him to our anniversary dinner made my blood boil. That was the worst part. She had played me, used my trust as a game. I had to get out of that house. I needed to breathe, to think. But the sight of her indiscretions, the evidence laid out so casually, made my fists tight. I wanted to tear everything apart. I wanted her to feel what I felt, how sick, how numb, how furious I was. I stood there staring at the screen, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks, and realized I'd crossed into a new reality. I couldn't just walk away, not after something like this. I needed a plan, a revenge that would hit her where it hurt, but I couldn't decide what that looked like yet. I just knew I'd never look at her the same way again. All the signs had been there, but I'd ignored them. Now I had the proof, and I was left with a choice: confront her, or let her keep fooling herself that she'd gotten away with it. The night stretched long, and I stayed there in the silence, feeling the weight of everything. That's when I realized this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about trust, betrayal, and how far I was willing to go to reclaim my dignity. I had a secret of my own now, one I wasn't ready to share. But I knew I'd get revenge. I just had to figure out exactly how. What I didn't know was how much of myself I'd lose in the process, and whether she'd even care. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind kept replaying those images, those words, her texting him, the pictures. It was a sick loop I couldn't escape. I didn't want to just confront her without a plan. I needed to know what I was doing, how I was going to make her feel the betrayal she'd handed me like a gift. But first, I had to gather more evidence. I had to be sure I wasn't imagining things, that this wasn't some cruel nightmare. I went through her phone again, digging into her messages, trying to find the earliest signs, the moments she'd started slipping away from us, but I knew I wouldn't find everything in her phone alone. I needed more leverage. So I decided to check her emails, her social media accounts, whatever might reveal more. The house was quiet again, except for the faint ticking of the clock and my own heavy breathing. I felt the sweat on my palms as I sat at her laptop, the keys cold under my fingertips. It didn't take long. Her email was full of exchanges with him, secret plans, code words. I could see the lies stacking up. The most infuriating part was how smooth she'd been about hiding everything. She'd lied so well, I almost felt foolish for trusting her for so long. But now I saw the truth, the dates, the times, the little lies she'd told herself to cover her tracks. It was a sick puzzle, and I was determined to piece it all together. While scrolling through her messages, I caught a glimpse of a recent dinner reservation. Her name was on the booking, but the restaurant was a fancy place downtown. The same night she'd invited me out for our anniversary. That's when it hit me. She'd planned her betrayal around our special day. Her deception wasn't just about cheating. It was about mocking my trust, twisting our memories into something filthy. I closed the laptop with a sick feeling in my stomach. I already knew what I had to do. I couldn't just confront her blindly, not without knowing how deep her lies went or how far she was willing to go. I needed proof, and I needed a way to make her feel vulnerable the way she'd made me feel. This wasn't just about catching her. It was about making her understand that she'd crossed a line I'd never forgive. Later that day, I took a walk. I needed to think, to clear my head from the fog of betrayal. The sun was shining bright outside, but all I saw was darkness inside. Every step I took, every breath I drew, felt like I was preparing for war. I had to outsmart her. She thought she'd gotten away with everything, but I had other plans. Plans that would turn her world upside down, leave her questioning everything she thought she knew about me. I started to sketch out ideas in my mind, ways to expose her, ways to make her regret her choices. I was interested in petty revenge or public humiliation. I wanted something more personal, more calculated, something that would hit her where it hurt most. The thought of her face, the shock, the shame, those images kept me going. I already knew she was a liar, but I wanted her to feel the weight of her lies, to see her fall from her pedestal. That night, I stayed up late, planning every detail. My mind was sharp, focused. I knew I had the evidence, and now I needed a way to confront her, make her see that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I'd wait until she was vulnerable, until she let her guard down. Then I'd strike. The question was, how? That's what kept me awake, turning over ideas like a dark, twisted game. I was figuring out not just how to catch her, but how to make her regret every single second of her betrayal. I was angry, yes, but I was also cold. Because in her lies I saw my own ruin, and I was ready to fight back. The days that followed were a slow, cold burn. I kept pretending everything was normal, even though inside I was brewing with quiet rage. Every time I saw her, the betrayal hit me anew. Her smile, her touch, everything felt like a lie, a mask she wore to hide the truth. I wanted to break her, make her feel as small and betrayed as I did. But I had to play it smart, keep my head clear. That's why I kept my composure, even when every glance in her direction made my stomach turn. I knew I couldn't just go off half-cocked. If I wanted to make her pay, I had to be patient. So I started leaving little clues, subtle things that would unsettle her, make her question whether I knew more than I was letting on. I would leave her phone unlocked longer, pretend to be distracted when she talked about her day. I wanted her to feel insecure, to get a taste of what she'd done to me. One evening, I went through her drawer and found a small, unassuming box. Inside were a few of her favorite perfume samples, but also a tiny recording device I'd planted earlier, just to be sure I was hearing everything. I pressed record, and as I sat in the living room, I felt the familiar squeeze of adrenaline, dangerous but necessary. I pretended to be casual, but my mind was racing with possibilities. That's when she came home, her heels clicking loudly against the tile floor. She looked nervous, more than usual, and I could see her eyes flickering around the room as if she was trying to spot something she'd hidden. She sat across from me, trying to act normal. She asked, "Did you find what you were looking for?" I looked her straight in the eyes and replied, "Oh, I've known for a while now. I just wanted to see how long you were going to keep lying." Her face drained of color. Her hands trembled, but she tried to maintain her composure. That's when I played the recording I'd made. The muffled sounds of her in the bedroom, whispering with him, laughing like they owned the night. Her eyes widened in shock. "That's not what it looks like," she whispered, but her voice cracked. I cut her off. "No, Lena. It looks exactly like what it is. You lied to me for months. You invited him to our anniversary dinner, knowing I was deployed. You thought you could get away with it." She looked like she was about to cry, but I was too furious to stop. You thought I wouldn't find out, but I did. And now I know exactly how deep your betrayal goes. That night I told her I'd had enough. I explained I'd been planning my revenge and it was time to show her she couldn't hide behind her lies anymore. I kept the evidence on hand, photos, recordings, the messages. I knew I had leverage and I intended to use it. I didn't want her to see this coming, not until I was ready. I planned to confront her on my terms, make her realize how badly she'd screwed up. She begged me, cried, tried to deny it all, but I had enough. Her lies had been exposed and I was done playing the fool. That night I sat her down and told her I needed space, time to think. I packed a small bag, left the keys on the table and walked out. I knew I wasn't going to sleep that night, not without thinking about the next move. I had everything I needed now, proof and a plan. She thought she was clever, but I was a step ahead. What I felt most was a strange mixture of emptiness and resolve. I had a decision to make, whether to forgive or to fight for something better. But deep down, I knew I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. My revenge wasn't about petty payback. It was about reclaiming my dignity, making her see that betrayal always comes with a price. And the next move, it was already in motion. I spent the next couple of days in a haze, trying to pull myself together while secretly plotting what came next. I knew I had to keep my cool, but that was easier said than done. Every time I saw her face, I felt that familiar surge of anger, hot, relentless. But I also knew I needed to be strategic. If I wanted to make her pay, I had to do it in a way she wouldn't anticipate. I spent hours considering the options. I could go the straightforward route, call her out, tell her I knew everything, threaten to expose her in front of everyone. But that would only give her a chance to scramble, hide more. Deny everything. No, I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, broken. I wanted to take her down a notch, make her regret ever crossing that line. One evening, I finally made my move. I printed out her most incriminating messages, the ones revealing her deceit, those intimate exchanges, the plans, the flirtatious words. I hid them in a folder, one that I knew she'd find if she ever looked through my things. I also left a few of the photos on her phone, just to keep the evidence fresh. Then I set the stage for the confrontation. I told her I knew about the affair, about the dinner, about everything. I made her look me in the eye and admit it, but I didn't just want her to confess. I wanted her to feel every bit of what she'd done to me. So I told her I had a plan, a way to make her understand that betrayal isn't just a word, it's a poison that destroys everything it touches. Her face twisted in shock, then anger. "You're crazy," she spat. "You have no proof." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the folder, tossing it onto the table. "Here. All of it and more. You thought I was stupid, hiding my suspicions. Well, I've been watching you for months." Her eyes darted to the papers, then back to me, her face pale. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. But I didn't flinch. I told her I wasn't interested in her threats. My plan was already in motion and she was just a pawn in my game. The truth was, I'd hired a private investigator. It wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about making her feel the weight of every lie, every betrayal. So I'd gathered enough dirt to turn her world upside down. She thought her lies could stay hidden forever. I was about to prove her wrong. That night, I handed her the evidence, then left the house. I didn't want to see her cry or scream. I just wanted her to sit with her guilt for a while. I knew she'd try to spin her story, deny everything, but I was ready for that. I'd prepared a detailed plan to expose her at the right moment. The feeling of control was strange but exhilarating. I realized I'd become both the judge and executioner because someone had to be. If she thought she could betray me and get away with it, she was dead wrong. I made sure she'd pay the price in ways she'd never see coming. And as I walked away that night, I felt a strange calm settle in. I'd set everything in motion, and now all I could do was wait. The next chapter would be about watching her scramble, watching her realize she'd lost more than just her marriage. I was reclaiming what was mine, and she was about to learn a lesson she wouldn't forget. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day I watched her from a distance, pretending to be indifferent but secretly relishing the tension. She was restless, pacing around the house, checking her phone constantly, trying to scrub away the evidence I'd left, but it was useless. I made sure she couldn't erase what I had in my hands, and soon enough her nerves started to crack. One afternoon she called me. Her voice was shaky, almost desperate. "Look, I know I screwed up. I'm sorry. Just tell me what you want. I'll do anything." I stayed quiet for a moment. I wanted her to feel every second of her regret to see how much she'd hurt me. Then I responded, "You want to fix this? It's too late for that, but I'll give you a chance to come clean on your own terms." She hesitated, then burst out crying. "Please don't do this," she begged. "I was stupid. I was lonely. It was a mistake." That's when I told her my plan was already in motion. I'd contacted the people she'd betrayed herself with, the ones who knew the truth. I'd let her think she still had some control, but I was already several steps ahead. I arranged for her to meet him just once more in a public place. I wanted her to see that I could ruin her if I wanted to. But more important, I wanted her to understand that her lies had consequences. I told her, "Tonight you're going to meet him, just one last time, and I'll be there waiting. After that, you'll have to decide what's more important, your lies or your marriage." That evening she left the house under the guise of finishing things, her heart pounding. I followed at a distance, hidden in shadows, watching her walk into that cafe downtown where they'd arranged to meet. My stomach twisted tight. I felt nothing but cold rage. Watching her sit across from him, her face a mix of guilt and defiance, I felt like I'd already won. When she looked up and saw me across the street, her face drained of color. She tried to pretend she hadn't seen me, but I crossed the street, standing outside the window. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, waiting. Eyes flickered with fear, then anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" she spat. "I'm here to remind you of what you've lost," I said calmly. "You thought you could lie to me, cheat behind my back, and get away with it, but I have the proof, Lena, every word, every picture, every moment you tried to hide." I turned to her and added, "You're not just cheating on me, you're destroying everything we built." She glared at me, furious and broken. "You have no right." "I have every right," I interrupted. "Because I'm done being the fool, and I'm not going to let you keep pretending this is okay. If you want to walk away from this mess, I suggest you do it now." She looked like she was about to argue, but then she saw the determination in my eyes. That was the moment I knew she'd get the message. I turned on my heel and walked away, leaving her with her secret, her shame, and her choice. As I drove away, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with sadness. I'd done everything I could to protect myself, my dignity, my pride. I knew she wouldn't forget this night. And I also knew I'd never trust her again. That's what revenge feels like, a long, slow burn that leaves you both hollow and strong. Now I just had to wait for her to make her next move. Whatever she decided, I was done pretending to be innocent. I was done playing the fool, and I was ready for the fallout. The days that followed felt oddly quiet, like the house had settled into a new, heavier silence. She kept her distance, avoiding my eyes, and I could tell she was unraveling. Her pride was slipping away, replaced by a desperate attempt to salvage whatever was left of her image. I stayed firm, letting her stew in her guilt, knowing I'd already won the war even if the battle wasn't over yet. I didn't bother hiding my satisfaction. Every time I saw her flinch or stumble, I felt a flicker of triumph. I had played her game better, planned the moves sharper. She thought she was clever, but I had turned her lies against her. I had turned her own betrayal into her downfall. One day, she finally broke. I came home from work to find her sitting on the couch, tears streaming down her face. Her voice was hollow when she said, "I'm sorry, I messed everything up. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did, and now I see what I've lost." She looked at me with pleading eyes, trying to buy back whatever piece of us she could. I felt nothing but cold resolve. I looked at her and said, "It's over. I'm done pretending. I found everything, every lie, every betrayal. I've got the proof, and I've already made my decision." She begged me, crying harder now. "Please don't do this. I'll leave, I swear I'll go far away, just don't end us like this." I shook my head slowly. "You should have thought of that before you decided to cheat, Lena, because now there's no going back. I can't trust you anymore." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the keys. I handed her the set, cold and heavy in my palm. "Here, take your things. I want you gone by tonight. I want you out of my house, out of my life." Her eyes widened as she grasped the keys, realizing I wasn't bluffing. I turned to leave, my heart pounding but my mind clear. As I walked out that door, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I'd reclaimed my dignity, myself. The house was no longer tainted by her lies. I'd chosen my pride over the pain of staying, and somehow that made everything easier. I spent the night alone, but I slept better than I had in months. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I'd taken the first step toward healing. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about setting myself free from a betrayal that nearly broke me. Looking back, I realized trust is fragile, so fragile that once broken, it's hard to piece back together. But sometimes the only way to move forward is to cut loose what's rotten and walk away. I can't say I'm happy about how it ended, but I am proud of how I handled it. My advice: don't wait for someone to betray you to realize your worth. When the signs are there, heed them. Because once the truth comes out, there's no going back. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about walking away with your head held high.